Hello, everybody. This is Amanda LOS, your Quicker Waker Upper, and you are tuned into Inalienable Sovereignty Conversations for Elevation. And I am here with Therese Tucker, and she's amazing. And I can't wait to dive in. If you could share a little bit about yourself. Welcome, Therese.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for having me on the show. My name is Therese Tucker, and I am the creator of Blythe Starlight, which is a full service brand. I make beautiful jewelry. I do intuitive artwork. I am also a psychic and a medium, and I help people to step into their sphere of destiny, really live fully the life that they're destined to live by helping them tap into being a creator being in their life.
Beautiful. I love it. And what does inalienable sovereignty mean to you?
Yeah, so to me, it's really along the lines of what I just mentioned about stepping into your creator being, like recognizing that you are the power source in your life. You're literally creating your life, and it's a beautiful choice you get to make. One of the things that's so fascinating about the plane that we're existing on right now is the incredible gift of free will. So I like to envision third density, or this time period we're in, almost like a game, and you really get to decide how you're going to play this game. And the beautiful thing is, when you tap into your identity as a creator being, you get to change the game anytime you want to.
Oh. I love that. I'll just add, I was going through a really intense time in my life. It wasn't the first shamanic shakedown, as they say, but I had I was married at the time to someone who was going off on methamphetamine. So he was really in another reality
Yeah.
and threatening me with a lot of things. And I was shown like he's created a game board, of his reality. And if you respond to him, then you're just validating this made up reality that he's on, and instead you can just tune into what is your reality, what's your game board, what are you manifesting for yourself. And instead of responding to him, it really helped me to step into my own relationship with source and trust that, beyond the fear and the threats and all that. And it was so empowering, so beautiful. I really see things that way as well. And I'm curious, you said you're a psychic. Is this something that you've known your whole life? I'd love for you to share a little bit about your journey with discovering it. I know it's not usually just an easy like, oh, I'm a psychic and now my life is like this and woo.
Right, exactly. Yeah, this is a great question. I always joke that I came out of the closet as a psychic, over, I think it was now 9 years ago, that I did so. But before then, my story, I mean, I think most people feel this way, especially as a child. Your experience, you tend to assume it's like everyone's experience. So you don't see it as different until you look back, or until you have acquired enough other people's experiences and hearing from their perspective what they went through, and then you're like, oh, whoa, that's not what I had. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
as a child, I remember talking to the fairies. I remember seeing them and talking with them, and that was normal. I
Mhm.
remember I used to have a lot of night terrors, and I actually had sleep paralysis up until college.
Oh.
And I would see, beings come in. Now, I've heard from scientific studies that, like, that's a visual side effect of sleep paralysis. But as someone who's gone through it, and also interacting with them, like knowing that there's a presence with you, I felt like I was being observed a lot as a child. I don't know who that was observing me, but they were definitely interacting. And just being able to feel the people on the other side of the veil. And I was waiting for validation to accept all of that. I was waiting for someone to tell me, you have the gift, in
Mm,
order for me to fully claim it.
mm,
um And I actually did get that validation through time, but it wasn't the I needed it from my family. I needed it specifically from my mom to say, yes, you have this. And I remember trying to share it with her. And even though she was fascinated by it and it was a topic we would talk about a lot, it was made clear to me that special people, only special people had this, and I wasn't special, right? So
Mm,
I even though it was happening, it was my imagination. I was told a lot as a kid, I have a great imagination, which I
mhm.
internalized and took in. And I still love that to this day, that yes, I have access to the, the inner visual part of my life. But now I understand that that's also clairvoyance and the ability to see through and communicate. And I also had an expectation, and I want to share this with your audience for anyone who might still be waiting to embrace their extrasensory gifts. I had an expectation that there would be like this dramatic moment when I would know, like the lights would appear, or I'd hear like angelic voices, or some kind of spectacular movie moment would happen that would help me really know that I had intuitive abilities.
Mm,
And that never happened. It never happened. And actually, when I share with people about how to contact people on the other side, or just how to deal with non physical energy, I encourage people to think about the non physical just like the physical, because all we're dealing with in the physical is energy as well. The thing that we're looking at, right? This is just an illusion. It's part of the tools of the game to
yeah.
help us make choices and play. But ultimately, energy is energy, whether it's physicalized or non-physicalized. And so if you can communicate with people on the physical plane, you absolutely can communicate with people in the non-physical as well. That there is a connection there. And it's, instead of seeing it as something more powerful than you, which used to be my perspective as well. I used to see the non-physical as something that was intimidating.
Mm,
All right, it was something intimidating and somehow separated from me. When I started to really connect with my own energy and really start to stand in my sovereignty and power, I started to recognize that this is an extension of me. We're all connected, we're all one. This energy field, I'm not separated from it in any way except in my mind. And as I started to break down those barriers, I really started to have a more intimate relationship, not only with my own energy and higher self, but it was so much easier to connect with those on the other side, recognizing that we are connected by this unseparatable fabric of life, right? That they're in there, and we have this ability to contact it. And I really feel that in my personal position, I feel everyone is psychic, that you're born with a psychic set of skills because you need them to
mhm.
navigate this field. It's part of your toolkit. And God didn't separate people out and go, okay, you guys can have these extra tools while everyone else has to play with this basic set of
Mm.
tools. I feel everyone has access to it. So one of my goals is helping people get in contact with that energy and understand kind of how it works. And when you start to peel back the layers that create separation, you really see that you actually are in touch with more than you may have realized before.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I feel like yes, we are all born with a lot of access to beyond the what we can see and physically feel. And then there's just been so much programming. Literally, the English language was created to disconnect. This is forced on a lot of indigenous peoples that were conquered. And those indigenous languages have woven into them this remembrance or never forgetting that there is this multidimensional world around us, and that's why the indigenous people were punished and like stigmatized not to speak their indigenous languages. And another thing that popped in for me is I know so many people. I had those skills, shut them down because it was, freaking people out. Didn't seem like it belonged here in the 3D. And then now I'm waking them up, have been waking them up. But one thing that I've found is that for a lot of people who are really, really tuned in to clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, that there was some kind of trauma for them that really activated it. It's like a big shock, right? That kind of broke through the programming and required this accessing these gifts to survive, to get through. And I'm curious if that was the case with you as well.
Yeah, I mean, so again, I was allowed to look at it. I was allowed to talk about it, and I accessed it, but I did have training, but it wasn't formal. So there was a little cafe near my neighborhood that I would walk to after school most days, that had it was a crystal shop and a cafe, and it had psychics in there and I would just sit there and talk with these psychics, and they would teach me
Mm,
different things, and they would help me know that yes, you have access to it and it's going to open up over time. So I had an awareness that this was accessible. But I agree with you, and I would tell you that when I came out of the closet coincided with one of the roughest moments of my life, and that was getting evicted. It was a moment that happened where I was working on my manifesting ability, but I was doing it from a very insecure place. So I was calling in what I wanted, and I was taking brave action towards it. I wanted a better home. And I was pregnant at the time with my second child, and my husband and I had focused on this. We found a place, manifested it, got in. We got like 2 months rent free. It was great. We got in there, and as soon as I got there, I felt so much like an imposter, like someone was going to find me out and
mm,
it was all going to fall apart. And that was the energy that I walked in with. So what do you think is going to happen if you're creating from that place? And it was right at that moment that I recognized, um, at the same time, I had made a commitment to open myself up more intuitively. And it was like the universe was like, great, we got to shut this shit down. So boom, like, I'm going to put you through the ultimate test, Therese. You think you can create your life, right? I'm going to take everything away that you think is creating safety and security. And I'm going to see what you do with that. And
mm,
what I did with that is I dug in so deep because it's all I had. All I had in that moment was faith. I remember we were working with the lawyers trying to create a deal where we could kind of get back on track and keep the place, and we thought we were succeeding. And I learned after the fact that they're not going to tell you they're going to evict you before they do it, because you could cut and run, or
mm.
they're not going to put themselves in jeopardy like that. So we were made to believe that we were on track and everything was going to be okay. And I remember I can't remember the day it was, but it was early in the morning. We were drinking our coffee. My baby's he had just been born a couple months before, and all of a sudden, bang, bang, bang at the door. And there's a police officer there and a maintenance man, and they're changing the locks. And they're telling us we have 6 hours to vacate.
Oh
Six
my
hours.
God.
And I've got a little baby and a toddler. And I remember this moment like
Wow.
it's sizzled into my brain. But my husband, at the time, he's still on his spiritual journey. He's still working on his growth. So we're all at different levels, and that's okay. But his response was a trauma response. He went around the house and was just like trying to decide what the heck we were going to get rid of, because we had 6 hours to go. And what I felt was like a big hand on my shoulder going, sit your ass down, sit down.
Mm,
And I went and I sat on the bed, and all I got was like, sit here until something comes. And I sat in meditation for about 20 minutes, and I'm just breathing, I'm grounding myself, I am focusing in on getting out of the fight or flight and just into neutral. That's all I wanted to do. And as soon as I touched that point, I heard, call the lawyer's office, and information just started coming at every step. What to do, what to say came, and I turned that 6 hours into 6 days.
mm,
I was able to extend it, work with everyone, and I chose to do it from a place of really high integrity, that I wasn't going to blame people who were just doing their job and following directions, that nobody did this to me. I made it. I took all this responsibility, all the power back, and I just maintained that place of integrity. And I remember what ended up happening is people were apologizing to me. They were wishing me well. They were like, we wish, and they actually helped me store my furniture for free until we could get into the new place.
Mm.
That is, I mean, I totally took a situation that could have gone any direction. And I chose to take my power back in that moment and really
Oh,
just anchor into, I can do this.
yeah.
And what was crazy was for 2 weeks, we were technically homeless. We were in hotels. And I remember every night I would get on the phone with my best friend and we would connect with spirit, and I'd go deeper and I'd ask for messages, and I'd hold, and we would do it for hours every night. And I remember there would be days during this 2 week period where we would be down to our last $35. I'd be going to sleep with $35 left in the bank
Mm.
and having to figure out, how am I going to generate the money to get another night's, hotel room. And I would just go, I don't know how this is going to happen. I give the how over to God. I just know we're going to be okay. I know we're going to be okay. And I would listen for guidance consistently, and the money would come. I would like book a reading or something would happen, and it would happen. I remember being in the swimming pool going, I can't believe like I'm floating with my child in the swimming pool going, this is the weirdest experience of my life. I'm technically without a home and I'm in the swimming pool, and I'm focusing on, connection and prayer every night. And we manifested a home to move into, and it was truly a miracle. It was, uh, the person was like, just get out of the hotel, come into this house. We will figure out all the down payment, all of that. Just come, come here, because you're not going to survive that long, spending night after night in a hotel room. And I know that it happened because at this point my husband had watched and he was like, okay, I'm going to follow your lead, because because you seem to know something. And I truly didn't. I was just putting it into the hands of God. And I was very um I was very clear with my energy. I wouldn't engage with people at the time who I felt would go into the fear. I'm like, I can't go into the fear. So I had only a handful of people that I talked to. And the deal was, we're holding the highest intention. You're going to hold this with me. And when I feel weak, I'm going to call you and you're going to just remind me I've got this and I can do this.
Yeah.
Um, and that was the master class level of cracking open every last bit of me. And once that happened, it was like the floodgates had opened and I had allowed access in even deeper, to the point where it was actually overwhelming.
Yeah.
I remember one night I was, after all of that, I was in bed sleeping, and I felt two beings come up to me while I was asleep, and I opened my eyes and I could see these two men there. And one man was speaking for the other, like he was trying to get me to help them and connect in energy. And I just remember, I don't speak any other language than English, but I said lo siento. I was like, go away. And I knew they spoke Spanish, and it just came out of me. And they receded back, and I was like, wow, okay, that's a little scary. I'm not ready to be dealing with, entities while I'm trying to go to sleep. So I had to kind of figure out how to create boundaries with the energy, which I think is a normal part of the process. I mean, when you open up something like that, you're open. And then it becomes new lessons about, how do I guard my energy? How do I maintain my energy?
Absolutely. What a powerful journey. And yes, as you said, we've been programmed to away from our power, and then these things happen, like we either stay shut down because it's scary or whatever we've been conditioned to think or feel about it.
Yeah.
And then if, something opens us up, sometimes, quite often, we can be vulnerable to all kinds of things. And so how do you help people to, who are open and exploring their gifts, to stay protected and really able to discern, I'm open to this, but not to this?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, I actually created a guide. It's available on my website if you go to blythestarlight.com, and it's a mini course on energetic protection. Um, but the basics are really simple. It is literally, again, this comes back to sovereignty and personal power. Nothing outside of you is more powerful than you. And I see so many people give that power away, including they externalize a higher power. They externalize source or God, whatever you want to call it, but they put it outside of them as this thing that is separate from them, doing something to them. And that's just, the clearer you can get on that's not how it works. It's within, like all the power is within, that your connection to source is coming deep from within you. In fact, in some traditions, they believe, and I resonate with this, that your heart is this sacred inner temple. Inside the heart, there is a very sacred inner space that is even guarded from you not from you entering it incomplete. So you must complete the healing journey before you can truly go into this sacred space, because it is like the portal to infinite intelligence, to pure oneness.
Yeah.
And we need to be whole, or as close to whole as we can be, to enter that space for our own protection and safety.
Mhm.
So by saying all that, what I want you to understand is all you need to do is say it, make the boundary, place it around you. I am a sovereign being. This is the line. Don't cross this line, with love and light to you, but don't cross my line. and and you can kind of create structures and energy for yourself when you feel you need more protection. And that's what that energetic protection course is about, is like the different ways you can create structures. I know, when I'm doing quantum healing hypnosis with clients, we put a white pyramid of light around the being, and that way, while they're under hypnosis, they're divinely protected. I often use an energy bubble, and I program it all sorts of ways,
Yeah.
but that's a great way to kind of see your containment field. Because with your aura, for example, and that's really where I feel like the soul is around us. And one of the goals of this ascension period is to embody, that's for the body to be prepared and have a high enough frequency to stabilize and hold the soul energy. But right now, I see it around us. And so when you think about your soul being slightly outside of you rather than tucked away in this safe armor of a body, then you really get serious about, okay, I need to create energy protection.
Yeah.
Because this soul, I mean, your aura is that containment field, but your aura, depending on how you focus, you can expand that infinitely. You can go into space and beyond with your auric field. So it's beautiful, but you also want to realize, like, if you can go that far, other things can go that far too.
Yeah.
And so where's the line, right? And that's decided by you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing all that. That really resonates with me. It's helpful to do daily clearing practices and clear, psychic funk out. And as you were talking, it just, before I even really got into, I knew I was powerful, but I was in the period where I'm like, I'm shutting all this down. I don't know how it fits into 3D. It seems to freak people out. I'm just going to focus on my academic prowess. But I became aware of, my sexual energy and how some of the things that turned me on or that I fantasized about were dark. And so I became in that moment aware of like energetic things, maybe from past lifetimes or what I've been exposed to. There's so much violence against women, violence, period, that we're exposed to in movies and video games and social
Yeah.
media, and it programs us. And we do have, even our conscious self may be like, I'm a light being, I'm a light healer, but if there's past lifetime stuff or traumas that are unaddressed, there can be parts of us that are actually, connecting with psychically, subconsciously dark energies and hooking them in, which I was like, oh, that's interesting. I want to really clean up my sexual energy. And it's been a profound turnaround, of what I attract and my own reality. But, so we can claim those things, but it's also important to really be aware and have as much awareness of the multidimensional self, subconscious energies, programs, traumas, and how they are playing out. Because if you're what you're calling in consciously manifesting, you can be like, I'm, I'm a powerful manifester, and if it's not matching up, then something in the unseen realm on some layer is at the helm and is calling in stuff that's not making sense to the conscious self.
Absolutely. While you're talking about that, I'm thinking about the fact that for with past lives, for example, it's easy for us to think that we're the same type of being that incarnates every time just because we have such a strong sense of like, this is who I am and my energy. And for example, both of us want to focus on the highest frequency. We're looking at creating that beautiful fourth, fifth, and beyond density consciousness experience. But we must also remember, like, this is a play, and we've played the bad guy before.
No
We're,
doubt.
we chose, and partly why we're maybe adamant about choosing this frequency is because we tried a few roles out, and we didn't do this in a arbitrary fashion where we're like, oh, this time I'll put on, Western garb. No, 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 no. Usually we have energetic soul contracts with other beings where we are assisting them. So it's not always what it appears on the
Yeah.
surface. So, for example, even those in this lifetime who are playing very dark roles, they're actually in service to us. And this is something that, if you're still triggered by what's happening, it can be very hard to grok. But if you can find the compassion or the recognition that if we're all one, that means all. It means no being, no energy is excluded from this oneness. And why would, I like to contemplate, why would source create that? What is the intent behind it? But ultimately, we've had lifetimes, we've had energetic positions where maybe we did something quite dark, and it's a tricky role to play. That is not, the dark is not an easy role to play. It has a lot of hooks and snares, like Amanda's talking about. And that actually does create some soul fragmentation, in which you would need a shaman to do a journey to go retrieve and heal that. Many times we have to reincarnate multiple times, even if we're not on a necessarily, it is a karmic path. Whatever we're doing creates karma, and until we resolve that, we will re-experience it. So as an example, if there was a lifetime where maybe there was a dark sexual energy or something happening where sex was tied to something quite dark, and that wasn't resolved, because often many people don't repent before they die. They don't go, oh my gosh, everything I did was wrong. Some do, and then they clear that karma when they recognize that I just did something to another being, and ultimately they are me, I am them. And so, you know that's the connection there, and they create that. But for a lot of us, when we pass, there isn't this kind of clear the deck thing. What happens is more of like a review. Let's look at that. Let's look at the playback. What did I do in that life? And you look at it and you go, oh wow, some of this stuff was really out of integrity with my true essence. And I want to go back and I want to clear that. I want to clear that out of the field. But then, of course, when we come back in, we're memory wiped and we're confused, and we get to stay that way until we do that deeper digging. And then we're like, oh man, this is so painful. This experience in my life causes me so much pain. And I can witness other people aren't experiencing that same pain. So, what is this? And as we ask that question, then we get to go in there and meet this piece that wants healing, that we want to heal.
Yeah.
And then it really, the beautiful thing is like, how do we, when we start coming to this place of compassion for ourselves, which is one of the lessons you were asking, like, what are the practices I do? I have to really work with compassion for myself, because there is a part of me that is very, can be very rigid. It wants to do it right. It wants to do it precise. And when I struggle to be precise because I'm human, this part can get very rigid with me. And so my goal is to soften and have compassion and learn to hold all parts of myself.
Mhm.
As I've done that, and as I continue to do that, it's easier to do it for others.
Oh, beautiful. And you were saying, you need a shaman to go, retrieve. And that's
Yeah.
actually some of the work that I do is rescuing the inner light, but instead of doing it for people, I teach them how to do it themselves, how to identify how it's showing up and how to do it themselves. So you can do it yourself. It just takes a little bit of practice. And it is all around compassion and bringing love, kindness, compassion to those fragmented parts. So anybody who's interested in that, there's a bunch of information about it. But how can people connect with you, Therese, and receive from get your jewelry, get your readings, get your support, and stay connected with you? Because you're amazing. I just, we haven't known each other very long, but I just feel so much resonance, and so great to have your wisdom here on inalienable sovereignty. How can people be on your journey with you?
Thank you so much, man. And thank you for the work you're doing. I absolutely love to hear that. I love that you're empowering people and showing them the way to healing and ultimately to that unification fields that we're trying to create within ourselves so we can experience it in the external world. So thank you for that.
Pleasure.
And I would love to connect with people. You can go to blythestarlight.com. I'll spell it. It's BLYTHESTARLIGHT.com. So Blythe Starlight. And it means Blythe is Old English for joy. And I just really love that word. And so that's kind of how that happens. But I am everywhere as Blythe Starlight. I have a YouTube channel where I do weekly karma cards.
They're
So I
great,
give
by the
people,
way.
oh,
The
thank
new
you.
subscriber,
I
really
love
great.
it. Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I do kind of weekly energetic readings about what's happening and bring forth messages from my team. I also have, you can go to my website, blythestarlight.com, and you can grab that free energetic protection mini course
So
so that you
helpful.
can. And what I love about it is these aren't hard, fast ways of energetic protection. They are tools I've used that are really resonant, that are working for me, but you can also create your own. And I
Yeah.
encourage people to play with it. You get to make it your own. You're the creator being. So, don't take what I give you as a hard and fast set rule. Take it as a starting point for you to start creating what feels in the most alignment for you to create a beautiful field of protection and raise your frequency.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. A lot of helpful information. I know there are a lot of people who are waking up more and more, feeling safer to see, feel, talk about, share their gifts. And so now is the time. And so what you've shared, I know, is really helpful for a lot of people. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in. We're going to be here next week, same time, same channel. Thank you for tuning in until we get to connect again. May the source be with you.
I love that.